They left me there, at the edge of town, at an empty bus stop. The sky was turning black. The rain had not started yet, but I could feel the wind pulling at my coat. And still, they left. My own family, my son, my daughter-in-law, my grandchildren. They said, "It is just for a few hours, Mother. We will be right back." But they never came back. I sat on that cold bench, watching the clouds roll in, and as the first drop of rain touched my hand, I realized something. This storm was not just in the sky, it was inside me, but I survived. Not just the hurricane, but the truth that followed. This is the story of how that one moment changed everything, and how sometimes the strongest shelter comes from within. Before we jump back in, tell us where you are tuning in from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe, because tomorrow I have saved something truly special just for you. My name is Margaret Wells. I am 68 years old. I live in a small, quiet town not far from the coast. It is the kind of place where the streets stay empty after 7 o'clock in the evening, and the neighbors still wave to each other from their porches. My house is small, but it is mine. I bought it with my late husband, Richard, nearly 35 years ago. We raised our only son, Thomas, in that house. There are still marks on the kitchen door where we measured his height every year on his birthday. The pencil lines are faint now, but I can still see them when the morning light comes through the window. Most mornings, I begin my day the same way. I wake up early, even though I no longer need to. I sit on the edge of the bed and stretch my hands, listening to the soft pop of my joints. Then I walk to the kitchen, turn on the kettle, and prepare a cup of black tea. No sugar, just a slice of lemon. I sit by the window and look outside while I drink my tea. There is a tree across the road, an old oak that changes beautifully with each season. I like to watch the birds resting on its branches. They seem so free. My life is quiet. Some might say it is boring, but I do not think so. There is peace in routine. There is safety in knowing what comes next. I read books, write letters, and tend to my garden. I also help at the local library twice a week. The children love story time. Sometimes I read to them for so long that I lose my voice. I do not ask for much. I never have. All I ever wanted was love and respect from my family. I gave everything I could to Thomas. When he was small, I stayed up late sewing his school costumes, helping with homework, and making his favorite meals. When he went to college, I sent care packages filled with snacks and socks and handwritten notes. After Richard passed away 10 years ago, I thought Thomas and I would grow closer. I believed we would lean on each other. And for a short time, we did. He called every evening. He drove me to the doctor. He invited me for Sunday dinners. His wife, Claire, was polite, and the children were small and sweet. But slowly, things changed. The phone calls became shorter. The visits became less frequent. There were always excuses. Work was busy, the children had sports, someone had a headache. I told myself it was normal. Life moves fast. People grow busy. But somewhere deep in my heart, I felt a small emptiness begin to grow. Still, I tried to be understanding. I offered to help. I offered to babysit. I offered to come over and cook. But Claire always found a reason to say no. "Mother, we have it under control. Thank you, but it is not necessary. We will call you next week." Next week turned into next month. Even when they did invite me, I noticed the difference. They talked around me, not with me. The children stared at their phones. Claire gave me fake smiles. And Thomas, he barely looked me in the eye. I would sit quietly at the dinner table, cutting my food slowly, pretending not to notice the silence, pretending not to feel invisible. And yet, I held on to hope. I believed that maybe things would improve. Maybe they were just going through a hard time. Maybe one day, my son would remember how close we once were. Maybe he would remember how many sacrifices I made for him. I told myself that everything was fine. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. Something I could not name. Something I could not yet see. But I could feel it. Like the first cold wind before a storm. I did not know it then. But my life was about to change forever. And it would begin on a day that looked just like any other. It was a Saturday morning when I first noticed the change. The sky was cloudy, but the air felt warm. I remember thinking it was too quiet. Not just in the neighborhood, but inside me. Usually, on Saturdays, I would hear from Thomas. Even if it was just a short text, he would say something like, "Good morning, Mom," or "Hope you have a nice weekend." It was not much, but it meant something to me. That morning, my phone stayed silent. I picked it up and checked to make sure the signal was working. It was. No messages, no missed calls. I put the phone back on the table and tried not to feel disappointed, but the silence followed me, like a shadow. I went outside to water the plants. My roses were starting to bloom, and the lavender smelled beautiful in the breeze. Gardening usually made me feel calm. But that morning, I felt something else, something unsettled. As I trimmed the dead leaves, I saw my neighbor, Mrs. Taylor, waving from her porch. I smiled and waved back, but my mind was elsewhere. After I finished in the garden, I went inside to prepare lunch. I made a sandwich, poured a glass of water, and sat down by the window. The oak tree across the street was full of birds, but even they seemed quieter than usual. I kept looking at my phone. Still nothing. Later in the afternoon, I decided to call Thomas. The phone rang twice before going to voicemail. I left a simple message. "Hello, Thomas. I hope everything is all right. I just wanted to hear your voice. Please call me when you have a moment." I ended the call and stared at the wall for a long time. My reflection in the glass looked tired. I touched the lines around my eyes. I did not mind growing older, but I did mind growing invisible. That evening, I received a message, but not from Thomas. It was from Claire. She wrote, "Hi, Margaret. Sorry we forgot to tell you. We are going out of town tomorrow for a few days. Thomas will be driving, and I will be helping my sister. We will be back next week." No mention of where they were going. No offer to stop by before they left. No invitation. I read the message 3 times. Then I placed the phone on the table and walked into the living room. I sat in Richard's old chair. The cushion still held the shape of his shoulders. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe deeply. There was nothing wrong with the message, at least, not on the surface, but something inside me felt heavy. It felt off. The way people feel when they are left out of a secret. The next morning, the doorbell rang. I opened it and saw Thomas standing there with his car engine running. "Morning, Mom," he said quickly. "Can you do us a small favor?" My heart lifted just for a second. "Of course. What do you need?" "Claire's sister is moving. She needs help with the baby. We are heading out that way. Can you come with us for a bit and watch the kids while we help?" I looked down at my slippers. "I am not dressed, Thomas." He laughed, but not kindly. "It will just take a few hours. You can stay in the car if you want. We just need another adult present for a while." I hesitated, but I said yes. In less than 10 minutes, I grabbed my purse, changed into my walking shoes, and followed him to the car. The grandchildren were in the back, half asleep. Claire gave me a small nod from the passenger seat but said nothing. The drive was quiet. Too quiet. They dropped me off at a bus stop on the edge of town. Thomas said, "Wait here just a bit, Mom. We will come back soon. The place is too crowded right now." We will pick you up once it calms down." Before I could ask anything, they drove off. I stood there, blinking at the road. The wind was picking up. The clouds were darker than I remembered. Something felt strange. Something felt wrong. I could feel something changing. I sat on the cold bench at the bus stop, trying to understand what had just happened. The wind had picked up, and I pulled my jacket tighter around my shoulders. My hands trembled slightly, not from the cold, but from something deeper. Something I could not name. They said they would be back soon. But how long was soon? I looked at the small digital clock on my phone. It was 10:42 a.m. I told myself to wait until 11. Maybe they just needed to move the furniture. Maybe it really was crowded, like Thomas said. Maybe Claire did not want the children around all the noise. I tried to stay calm. A bus passed by, but it did not stop. The driver glanced at me but did not slow down. I was not standing at the right sign. This was not a real station. It was just a shelter near an empty corner, a place where buses passed but rarely picked up. The clouds overhead thickened. The smell of rain was in the air. At 11:01 a.m., I called Thomas. No answer. I waited 5 more minutes. Then I called again. Still no answer. My stomach began to tighten. I was not angry. Not yet. I was confused, lost in a fog of questions. Why would they drop me off here? Why did they need me to come at all? Was this really about helping Claire's sister? Or was there something else? A woman walked by, holding a plastic bag over her head to block the wind. She looked at me with sympathy but kept walking. I wanted to ask her where I was, but I stayed, quiet. It had been many years since I last felt this kind of confusion. The kind that starts small, like a whisper, and grows louder with every unanswered question. I thought about the last few months. The short messages, the canceled visits, the way Claire looked past me when we spoke, like she was already thinking of the next thing. Was I imagining it, or had I become a burden? No. I shook my head. Thomas would never treat me that way. But, then again, he had just left me here, in a strange place, with no explanation. My phone buzzed. I quickly opened the message. But it was from the phone company. A bill reminder. No message from my son. It was almost noon now. I stood up and began to pace slowly. I counted my steps to stay calm. 1, 2, 3, up to 15, then back again. My shoes made soft sounds on the pavement. The wind whistled through the trees across the road. I noticed a small grocery store nearby and decided to walk toward it. Maybe someone inside could give me directions or let me sit down somewhere warmer. The cashier, a young man with kind eyes, greeted me. "Good afternoon, ma'am. Can I help you?" I smiled politely. "I am just looking for a place to wait. My son said he would pick me up, but the weather is turning." He looked out the window. "Yes, looks like the storm is getting closer. Do you have a way home if he does not come?" His question hit me hard. Did I? I opened my purse and checked for my bus pass. It was not there. I must have left it in my other bag. I felt heat rise to my face. I may need to call someone. He nodded and offered me a seat near the window. I sat down and stared at the gray sky. I tried calling Thomas again. No answer. It was now 12:18 p.m., more than 2 hours had passed. I felt like a fool. A silent, sitting fool. And yet, I still waited. Not because I believed in their story, but because I wanted to believe that I mattered, that they would remember I was waiting, that they would come back. But the truth sat quietly beside me, like a shadow I could not shake. Something had changed, and I was beginning to understand. This was not an accident. They did not forget me. They left me, and I did not know why. The clouds outside the window had darkened. I sat in the small grocery store, my hands folded tightly in my lap. I kept glancing at the door, hoping I would see Thomas walk in, his face full of apology, his arms open. But the door stayed closed. I thought about calling Claire. Maybe she would answer. But then I remembered the way she looked at me last week. Distant. Like she had already made up her mind about something and just did not want to say it out loud. That kind of silence feels louder than words. I pulled my phone out once more. My hand hovered over Thomas's name. Then I put it down again. I could not keep calling someone who refused to answer. I had to give him time. That is what I told myself. He must have a good reason. He must be busy. Maybe his phone died. Maybe the children were crying. Maybe Claire needed him. I closed my eyes and breathed in deeply. I wanted to believe that this was not what it looked like. I wanted to trust him. After all, he was my son. I raised him. I gave everything I had for him to have a better life. I took extra shifts at the diner. I wore secondhand clothes so he could have new ones. I stayed up late with him when he had nightmares as a child. He used to call me his hero. I remember the day he left for college. He hugged me so tightly. He promised he would never forget where he came from. He promised that I would always be part of his life. Was that still true? Or had something changed over the years? I blinked quickly and looked out the window. The rain had started. Light drops at first, then heavier. People rushed down the sidewalk, holding jackets over their heads, searching for shelter. The air smelled of wet cement and something bitter, like burnt leaves. The young cashier, the one who had been kind to me earlier, came over with a cup of tea. "You look like you could use something warm," he said with a small smile. I accepted it with both hands. "Thank you. That is very kind of you." He nodded. "Storm is getting stronger. If you need to call someone else, you can use our phone. No charge." I thanked him again. He walked away, but his kindness stayed with me. There are moments when a stranger's simple act of care can break open something inside. I held the cup close to my lips and closed my eyes for a moment. The tea was too hot to sip, but its warmth comforted me. I looked at the time again. Nearly 1 p.m. 3 hours. 3 hours of waiting. Still, a part of me whispered, "Do not give up yet. Wait a little longer. He will come." I felt like a mother waiting at a school gate, long after the children had gone home. Still believing. Still hoping. I scrolled through old photos on my phone. There he was, on his wedding day, smiling, holding Claire's hand, looking so proud. There I was, next to them, in my soft blue dress. I remembered how tightly he had squeezed my hand that day. There was love in that squeeze. There was still love, was there not? A loud clap of thunder startled me. I looked up. The lights in the store flickered. The storm was fully here now. Still no message. Still no call. I took one more sip of the tea. It had cooled now. I held the cup in both hands, staring into it like it might hold answers. I wanted to trust him. I needed to trust him. Because if I could not trust my own son, then what did I have left? I closed my eyes again and whispered, "Please come back." But deep down, I was beginning to feel it. That quiet, painful truth. Maybe he was not coming back. Maybe trusting him was the hardest choice I would have to make. And maybe, just maybe, I was not ready to stop hoping. Not yet. The wind had grown louder outside the grocery store, howling past the glass like a voice trying to speak. I listened to it between sips of my now lukewarm tea. The young cashier had gone to the back, and for a while, I sat there alone. The shelves around me rattled gently. The lights flickered once more. Then my phone buzzed. I jumped slightly. For a moment, I thought, no, I hoped. It was Thomas. But it was not. It was a message from Linda. Linda and I had worked together at the library for more than 10 years. She was the kind of friend who showed up with soup when you had the flu and who called you when you were too quiet for too long. Her message was short. Are you okay? I had a strange feeling. Where are you? I stared at her words, fingers frozen over the screen. Then I replied, at the corner store. Thomas was supposed to pick me up 3 hours ago. Her answer came quickly. Helen, I do not want to scare you, but I saw Claire last week. She said something odd. I blinked. What do you mean? I typed. She asked me if I thought you would be okay living alone. She mentioned the word facility. My heart dropped. A facility? Yes, like a home for older people. I read the word over and over. Something cold settled in my stomach. Claire had not said a word to me. Not even a hint. Why would she be thinking about something like that? I was still walking on my own, still reading every day, still making meals, doing laundry, watering my plants. Was I slower? Yes. But was I helpless? No. I put the phone down, slowly, and looked out the window. The storm outside seemed to have its own heartbeat now. I remembered something from earlier that week. Claire had come over. She had looked around the house in a strange way. She had asked about the stairs, about the fire alarm, about how often I cooked for myself. At the time, I thought she was just being careful. Now I was not so sure. Linda's next message came quickly. Be careful. Something does not feel right. I do not want you to be surprised. I wanted to believe Linda was overreacting. But deep inside, a voice whispered, what if she is not? I started to piece things together. Thomas's silence, Claire's quiet, questions, the ride they had promised and forgotten. Was it possible they were planning something without me? Making choices about me without me? I stood up and walked slowly to the window. The rain ran down the glass like tears. I felt as though I was waking up from a long sleep. I thought I knew my family. I thought they respected me. But what if they were deciding that I no longer belonged in my own life? I leaned my forehead against the glass and closed my eyes. I heard the storm, but I also heard Linda's voice in my mind. Be careful. That was a warning. A quiet one. But warnings do not always come with sirens. Sometimes they come in whispers. Sometimes they come from people who love you enough to speak the truth, even when it hurts. I sat back down, heart heavier than before. I thought about all the times I had trusted too easily. I had given them space. I had made excuses. I had blamed myself when things felt wrong. But now, I was hearing something clearer. A warning, and warnings are not given for no reason. I stared at my phone again. No calls from Thomas, no messages from Claire, only silence. The kind of silence that follows planning. The kind that makes decisions behind closed doors. I felt my fingers tremble as I texted Linda one more time. Thank you for telling me. I think I need to prepare myself. Her reply was simple. You are stronger than you think, and you are not alone. I smiled a little at that, just a little, because maybe I was starting to understand something. Storms do not always begin with thunder. Sometimes they begin with a friend's quiet message, and I had just heard mine. After reading Linda's warning message, I felt a cold knot tighten in my chest. Yet, as much as I wanted to believe her, I also wanted to believe in my family. I wanted to believe that Thomas and Claire loved me enough to be honest with me. So, I made a decision. I would try to ignore the warning. I told myself it was just worry, just fear, just my mind playing tricks. I was older now. Yes, I had faced many storms in my life. I had weathered hard times before. I could weather this one, too. I folded the message away in my mind like a paper I did not want to open. The rain was still falling outside, steady and soft. I walked back to my small apartment, clutching my purse. The familiar sound of rain tapping on the windows was almost soothing. I sat down at my kitchen table and looked around. The house was quiet, empty. The silence pressed against my ears. Thought about calling Thomas again. Maybe he would answer now. I picked up my phone. My finger hovered over his name. But I put the phone down. Not yet. I needed to believe in him. I needed to trust. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window. The gray sky was fading into the soft colors of dusk. I watched the water run down the glass. I tried to push Linda's warning out of my mind. I told myself that people sometimes say things because they are scared. They want to protect you, but might be mistaken. I thought about the long years I had spent raising Thomas. All the times I had sacrificed. All the nights I stayed awake to make sure he was safe. How could he do this to me? I shook my head. No, he could not. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. I will not think about this anymore, I whispered to myself. But even as I said the words, my heart was heavy. I knew I was trying to fool myself. That night, I went to bed early. I pulled the covers up around me and closed my eyes. I tried to sleep, but the warning stayed with me. The voice inside my head repeated Linda's words. Be careful. I felt a strange mix of fear and stubbornness. Fear, because something was wrong. Stubbornness, because I did not want to admit it. The next day, I forced myself to act normal. I went to the grocery store. I greeted the cashier with a smile. I made small talk with my neighbors. I cooked dinner for myself. But inside, I was restless. I kept checking my phone, waiting for a message, waiting for a call, waiting for Thomas. He never came. The days passed. The rain stopped. The sun came out. But the silence from my family stayed. I tried to fill the silence with books and television. I tried to fill it with memories of better times, but the warning still whispered in the back of my mind. I wanted to ignore it. I wanted to believe it was nothing. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the worried look in Linda's eyes. I saw Claire's quiet questions about my health. I saw Thomas's absence, and I felt the cold truth settling deeper. Maybe they were planning to leave me out. Maybe they thought I was a burden. Maybe they were deciding things about me without asking me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But I did not. I told myself to be strong, to hold on to hope, to trust. Because what else could I do? I tried to live my life as if nothing had changed. I watered my plants. I called a friend. I listened to music. But every day the warning grew louder in my heart. I knew I could not ignore it forever. One day, I would have to face it. One day, I would have to choose. But for now, I would pretend. Pretend that everything was okay. Pretend that my family still loved me. Pretend that the storm outside was just the weather. I had always thought I knew how to read people's faces. Over the years, I learned to notice the small signs. A twitch of the eyebrow, a sudden pause, a glance that lingers too long or disappears too quickly. I learned to trust those signs. But with Thomas, things felt different. When he finally came to see me after days of silence, I noticed something immediately. The way he looked at me. It was not the warm, loving look I remembered from my childhood, or even from recent years. No, it was something quieter, something colder, something that made my skin crawl. His eyes avoided mine at first. When he did look, there was a strange mix of guilt and frustration. He seemed tired, like he carried a heavy weight that I did not understand. His smile was forced, a shadow of the man I thought I knew. I sat on the old sofa, watching him carefully. I tried to hide my confusion and hurt behind a calm face. But inside, my heart was breaking. "Thomas," I said softly. "What is going on?" He shifted uncomfortably and avoided eye contact again. Then, after a long pause, he said, "Mom, I did not mean to worry you." His voice was low and uneven. It did not sound like the confident man I remembered. I studied his face more closely. His jaw was tight. His hands shook slightly as he ran them through his hair. He seemed almost afraid of something. I wanted to ask more questions, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I said, "You can tell me anything." He looked at me then, really looked at me. But the look was filled with doubt, as if he was trying to decide if he could trust me. I wanted to reach out and touch his hand, to tell him that I was here for him. But I held back. "Why have you been avoiding me?" I asked quietly. Thomas looked away, his eyes fixed on the floor. Then he took a deep breath. "It is complicated," he said. "There are things going on that I do not know how to explain." I nodded slowly. "Try. Please." He hesitated, then began to speak in a low voice. "There have been talks, at work, at home, about what is best for you." My heart stopped for a moment. "What do you mean?" I whispered. Thomas looked up, meeting my eyes for a brief second. "Some people think you need more help than we can give." I felt a cold wave wash over me. I swallowed hard. "Help?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "Yes," he said softly. "We want what is best for you." "But do you know what I want?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Thomas did not answer. Instead, he looked away again. The silence filled the room. It was heavy and suffocating. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I needed to be strong. For myself. For my dignity. For the years I had lived on my own. I swallowed the lump in my throat and said, "The way you look at me now, it feels different. It feels like you are not sure if I am the same woman you once knew." Thomas looked at me, his eyes softening for a moment. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "I do not want to lose you." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust him again. But the doubt lingered. The way he looked at me told a story of distance and fear, of something breaking between us, and I was not sure if it could be fixed. For a long moment, we just sat there in silence. The storm outside had passed, but inside, the tension was still strong. Finally, I stood up. "I need some time," I said. Thomas nodded slowly. "I understand," he said. As he left, I watched his back. The man I loved was still there, but a part of him felt far away. I sat back down on the sofa, feeling the weight of the evening settle around me. The way he looked at me was a warning, not just about him, but about the future, about what might come next. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I would have to be ready. Ready for whatever was coming. Because sometimes the hardest battles are not fought with words. They are fought with the looks we cannot forget. The next day, I woke up with a heavy feeling in my chest. The way Thomas had looked at me yesterday lingered in my mind. There was something he was hiding, something important. I knew I had to find out the truth, no matter how painful it might be. After breakfast, I waited for him to come to my house. I did not want to rush him, but I could not keep pretending everything was fine. When Thomas arrived, I greeted him quietly. He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. We sat down in the living room. The silence between us felt thick. I decided I could not wait any longer. "Thomas," I said, "I need to ask you something. I want you to tell me the truth." He looked surprised but nodded slowly. "What truth?" he asked softly. I took a deep breath and looked straight into his eyes. "Do you think I am not capable of taking care of myself? Do you think I am a burden to you?" He looked away for a moment, then back at me. His face was serious, almost sad. "I do not want to hurt you, Mom," he said carefully. "But sometimes it feels like you are not the same woman you used to be." I felt my heart tighten. Those words cut deeper than I expected. "What do you mean by not the same?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Thomas hesitated. "You forget things sometimes. You get confused. You are not as strong as you were before." I wanted to argue, to say that I was still the same woman who raised him, who worked hard and faced challenges alone. But I also knew that I was not as strong as before. Age had changed me. Illness had changed me. I swallowed the lump in my throat and asked again, "What are you really trying to say?" He looked down, then back up with a mixture of guilt and fear. "Your family is worried," he admitted. "They think you might need help, more than we can give." I clenched my fists. "Help? What kind of help?" Thomas took a deep breath. "They are talking about moving you into a care home." I felt a sudden cold rush through my body. The thought of leaving my home, my memories, and my independence terrified me. "I am not ready for that," I said firmly. "I want to stay here, in my own house." Thomas nodded. "I know, Mom. We want to respect your wishes, but we also want to keep you safe." I looked at him, searching for honesty. "Is that the real reason you have been avoiding me? Because of this?" He looked away again. "Yes, partly. I did not want to upset you." I shook my head slowly. "Thomas, you should never hide the truth from me. I am your mother. I deserve to know what is happening." He reached out and took my hand gently. "I am sorry. I will be honest with you from now on." For a moment, I felt a small relief. Maybe things could be better. Maybe we could face this together. But then a new question came to my mind. "Who else knows about this?" I asked. Thomas looked uncomfortable. "Your brother and sister. They have been discussing it for weeks." I felt a sharp pain. I had not expected this from my own children. "Have they talked to me about it?" I asked. "No," Thomas said, quietly. "Not yet." I felt betrayed. How could they plan such a thing without telling me? "Why did you not tell me?" I asked, tears welling up in my eyes. Thomas sighed. "They wanted to protect you. They thought you would be upset." "But I am upset now," I said firmly, "more than I have ever been." He nodded sadly. "I know." We sat in silence for a moment. I felt a mix of sadness, anger, and fear. The truth was harder than I had imagined, but I was determined not to let this break me. "Thomas," I said softly, "I need you to promise me something." He looked at me. "Anything, Mom. Promise me that you will not let anyone make decisions about my life without talking to me first." He squeezed my hand. "I promise." I smiled weakly. It was a small comfort, but it meant a lot. As he left, I felt a strange mixture of hope and dread. The truth was out, but the battle had just begun. I knew I would have to fight for my home, my dignity, and my life, and I would not be silent. After my conversation with Thomas, my mind did not stop racing. I found myself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling while thoughts circled endlessly. Every moment I was not busy with small tasks, those thoughts crept in. They made it impossible to focus or rest. I kept asking myself the same questions. Why had my own children planned to move me out of my home without telling me? Did they really believe I was not capable of living alone? What did they think of me now? Were they ashamed of the mother they had once loved? The silence in the house felt heavier than ever. It was as if the walls were closing in on me. I walked from room to room, touching things that held memories. The worn armchair where I had read stories to my children, the old photo albums on the shelf, the kitchen table where we had shared so many meals. All these things reminded me of the life I had built, the life I was not ready to give up. I tried to distract myself by watching television or reading a book, but nothing helped. The questions kept coming back, louder each time. I felt alone even when Thomas was around. I could see the worry in his eyes. But he was careful with his words, afraid to upset me again. One afternoon, I decided to go for a walk. The air was fresh, and the sky was clear, but inside I felt a storm. I walked slowly down the street, past familiar houses, greeting neighbors who smiled politely but seemed unsure how to act around me. I stopped by a small park bench and sat down. I looked at the children playing nearby, their laughter echoing in the air. I wondered if my grandchildren would one day see me the way I used to see my own mother, strong, reliable, full of love. But now, I was invisible to them. I was a problem to be solved, a burden to be carried. That thought made my chest ache. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe deeply. I wanted to push away the fear and sadness, but they clung to me like a heavy blanket. As I sat there, I realized how much I missed the feeling of being in control of my life. I missed the confidence I once had. I missed the woman who did not need anyone's permission to make decisions. Now, I felt trapped by my family's doubts and their silent plans. When I returned home, I tried to talk to Thomas again. I needed reassurance, some kind of plan that included me. But he was cautious. He told me that my siblings were still talking and that nothing was decided yet. "Please, Thomas," I said. "I need to be part of the conversation. I cannot sit and wait for decisions to be made without me." He nodded. "I understand. I will try to include you." But even his words felt uncertain. I could tell he was afraid of the conflict that might come from standing up to his siblings. That night I sat by the window, watching the rain fall softly outside. The steady sound was comforting. It matched the slow rhythm of my thoughts. I asked myself again, what would I do if this storm passed and I still had to fight for my home? What if I lost the battle? The fear was real, but I refused to let it take over completely. I reminded myself of the strength I had inside. The strength I had used for years to raise my family and build a life from nothing. I whispered quietly, "I will not give up. I will fight for my dignity and my home." Even though my heart was heavy, I felt a small spark of hope. It was fragile, but it was there. I knew the days ahead would be difficult. I would have to be brave, to face uncomfortable truths, and to ask hard questions. I might have to accept help, but on my own terms. I promised myself I would not let my family decide my fate without my voice. The next morning, I woke up early. The sky was still gray from the rain, but the world looked a little clearer to me. I decided to write down my feelings. Putting my thoughts on paper helped calm my mind. I wrote about the pain of feeling abandoned, the confusion about what my family thought of me, and the fear of losing my independence. But I also wrote about the woman I wanted to be, strong, calm, and full of hope. Writing gave me a sense of control. It was a way to fight back against the silence and uncertainty. That day, I called an old friend, Mary. I had not spoken to her in a long time, but I knew she would listen without judgment. Talking to Mary helped me feel less alone. She reminded me that I was not weak, and that asking for help was a sign of courage, not failure. As the sun set, I felt a little lighter. My thoughts had not disappeared, but they no longer controlled me. I was beginning to understand that healing would take time. That strength was not the absence of fear, but the courage to face it every day, and I was ready to face whatever came next. The days after my call with Mary passed slowly. The house felt emptier than ever, even with Thomas around. It was not just the silence. It was the weight of everything left unsaid. A quiet pain settled deep inside me, one that no words could fix. I spent much of my time sitting by the window, watching the sky change from morning light to evening shadows. Sometimes, the rain fell again, soft and steady. The sound was soothing, but it also reminded me of the tears I held back. There was a strange loneliness in the quiet. It was not just being alone. It was feeling invisible, like I was a ghost, in the home I had lived in for years. I tried to tell myself that this pain would pass, that it was part of a healing process. But some nights, the sadness felt endless. It was a cold, heavy feeling that wrapped around my heart. I could not share this pain with my children. They seemed too busy or too afraid to listen. When I tried to speak, their answers were short, distracted. They looked at me as if I was a problem to be managed, not a mother to be loved. That made the pain worse. One evening, after dinner, I sat quietly in the living room. Thomas was reading in his chair, and the house was peaceful. I looked around, at the familiar furniture, the photos on the walls, the little things that told the story of my life. And I cried. I let the tears come, slowly at first, then faster. I cried for the mother I had been, for the family I thought I had. I cried for the loneliness that no one saw. After a while, the tears stopped. I wiped my eyes and took a deep breath. The pain was still there, but it felt a little lighter. Sometimes, crying was the only way to let the hurt out. The next day, I decided to write a letter. Not to send, just to write. I needed to put my feelings somewhere outside my head. I wrote about the quiet pain, the fear of losing my family, and the hope that maybe things could change. Writing was a small comfort, like a warm blanket on a cold night. I also started to walk again. Not far, just around the block, but the fresh air helped clear my mind. I noticed things I had not seen before: the bright flowers in a neighbor's garden, the sound of birds in the trees, the smile of a stranger passing by. These small moments reminded me that life was still beautiful, even with pain. One afternoon, I received a call from my sister Linda. We had not spoken much recently, but she sounded gentle and kind. "I heard about what is happening," she said softly. "I want you to know that I am here if you need to talk." Her words surprised me. We had not always been close, but in that moment I felt a small connection. It was like a door opening just a little bit. We talked for a while, and I shared some of my feelings. She listened without interrupting. It was the first time in weeks that I felt heard. That conversation gave me a little hope. Maybe not everything was lost, but the quiet pain stayed. It was a reminder that healing was not quick or easy. It came in small steps, sometimes forward, sometimes back. I began to understand that pain was part of my story now. It was a shadow that followed me, but it did not have to define me. Each day I tried to be gentle with myself. I allowed the sadness to be there, but I also looked for moments of light. One evening, I sat in the garden with a cup of tea. The sun was setting, painting the sky with soft colors. I closed my eyes and let the calm wash over me. In that quiet moment, I felt a small peace. The pain was still inside, but it was softer now. Like a quiet friend who did not leave, but also did not hurt as much. I knew I still had a long journey ahead. There were many questions without answers, many wounds that needed time to heal. But I also knew I was not alone. Not completely. Thomas stayed by my side, even if his support was quiet. My sister had reached out. And I had myself, a woman who was learning to face pain with courage. That was a start. As the night fell, I whispered to myself, "This pain is quiet, but I am louder." And with that, I felt a little stronger. The quiet pain I had carried for so long began to demand something more. It was not enough to feel hurt and confused anymore. I needed clarity. I needed answers. The questions that circled in my mind like restless shadows could not be ignored any longer. One evening, after dinner, I found Thomas sitting in his usual chair, lost in his book. The house was calm, the kind of silence that felt heavy. I knew I could not wait any longer. I had to speak. I took a deep breath and walked over to him. "Thomas," I said softly, "I need to talk. I need to understand." He looked up, surprised, to see the seriousness in my eyes. "What is it, Mom?" His voice was calm, but I could feel the tension between us. I sat down opposite him and met his gaze. For weeks now, I have felt something is wrong. I hear things, I see things, but no one will tell me the truth. I am tired of waiting. I need to know what is happening. Thomas closed his book and sighed deeply. "I did not want to hurt you, Mom. I did not want to cause you pain." "Then please, do not keep me in the dark," I said. "I deserve to know." He hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Your children, they are worried about money. They have been making decisions without telling you." The words hit me like a cold wind. "What kind of decisions?" Thomas looked away. "They have been using your name for loans and debts. They have not told you because they were afraid you would say no." I sat in stunned silence. My own children, hiding things from me, using my good name without my permission. It felt like a betrayal so deep it cut through my heart. "Why would they do that?" I asked, my voice trembling. Thomas shook his head. "I do not know. Maybe they are desperate. Maybe they think you will not care anymore." Tears filled my eyes. The woman who had given her life to her family was now a stranger to them. I felt the weight of loneliness settle on my shoulders. "Did you try to stop them?" I asked. "I tried, but they would not listen. They said it was none of my business." The silence that followed was heavy and painful. I realized that the family I had trusted so deeply had secrets I did not know, and those secrets were breaking us apart. "I cannot believe this," I whispered. "How did it come to this?" Thomas looked at me with sympathy. "Sometimes people change when money is involved. They forget what matters most." His words echoed in my mind. I thought about the past, the love and trust I had shared with my children. Now, it felt like a distant memory, fading in the shadows of greed and fear. "I want to confront them," I said firmly. "I need to hear their side, face to face. Thomas nodded. I will support you, but be careful. They might not react well. The thought frightened me, but I knew I could not run away from this any longer. I had to be strong for myself and for the truth. The next day, I called my daughter, Claire. We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe near my home. When I arrived, I saw her sitting alone at a small table, looking tired and uneasy. Thank you for coming, I said as I sat down. Claire forced a smile. I know you have questions, Mom. Yes, I do. Why did you and the others keep these secrets from me? Why did you use my name without telling me? She looked down, her fingers twisting nervously. We did not want to worry you. We thought we could fix things before you found out. But you hurt me instead, I said. You made me feel like I do not matter. Claire's eyes filled with tears. That was never our intention. We were scared. I took a deep breath and tried to hold back my own tears. Fear does not excuse hiding the truth. We talked for a long time that day. The conversation was painful, filled with tears and regret, but it was honest. I realized that my family was struggling in ways I did not fully understand. They were afraid of failure, afraid of losing what little they had. But I also understood that I had a choice. I could stay silent, or I could speak up and reclaim my place in their lives. When I left the cafe, I felt a strange mix of emotions, sadness, anger, but also hope. The answers I had sought were painful, but they were a beginning. I knew that the path ahead would be difficult. Trust would need to be rebuilt, and wounds would need to heal. But I was ready, because sometimes the hardest questions lead to the strongest answers. The days after my conversation with Claire were heavy with thought. I could not stop turning over every word, every emotion shared between us. It was as if a fog was lifting, and slowly, the full picture of what had been happening around me was coming into focus. I finally understood the depth of the struggle my family was facing, and the price I had paid by being left in the dark. It was not easy to accept. For so long, I had believed in a world where honesty and openness were the foundation of family, but reality showed me otherwise. Fear and desperation had created walls between us, walls built on silence and lies. One afternoon, I sat alone in my living room, looking out the window at the gray sky. The rain tapped softly against the glass. I felt a quiet sorrow, but beneath it, a growing clarity. I understood that their actions, as hurtful as they were, came from a place of fear. They feared failure, rejection, and the loss of stability. Their decisions were not just selfish acts. They were desperate attempts to hold on to something slipping away. I remembered how Claire had said, "We thought we could fix things before. You found out." Those words stayed with me. I realized she and the others were trying to protect me. But they did so in the worst possible way, by excluding me. This realization did not erase the pain, but it softened it. I saw their mistakes in a new light. I saw the cracks in our family's foundation, and I understood that healing would take time and effort from all of us. That evening, I sat down with a notebook and began to write. I wrote letters to each of my children, not to send, but to pour out my feelings honestly. I wrote about my hurt, my confusion, and my hope. I wrote about the love that still existed beneath the broken trust. Writing helped me organize my thoughts. I saw that I was not just a victim of their secrets, but also a woman with strength and courage. I realized that understanding was the first step to forgiveness, not just for them, but for myself as well. The next morning, I reached out to my son, David. Our conversation was difficult but necessary. He admitted to his mistakes and shared his fears openly. I listened without anger, letting him speak his truth. "I did not want to lose you, Mom," he said quietly. "But I was afraid to tell you the truth." His words touched me deeply. I told him, I needed to know, even if it was hard. We cannot fix anything without honesty. We agreed to take small steps toward rebuilding trust. It would not be easy, but it was possible. Over the following weeks, I met with my children one by one. Each meeting was a mix of tears and awkward silence, but also moments of connection. We began to talk about the future, about how to move forward together. One afternoon, I found myself thinking about the woman I had been before all this happened. The woman who had always put her family first, sometimes to her own detriment. I realized that I needed to change, not to become someone else, but to become stronger for myself and for those I loved. This new understanding gave me a sense of peace. I was no longer lost in confusion or betrayal. Instead, I was ready to face the challenges ahead with open eyes and an open heart. I also began to see the importance of setting boundaries. Love did not mean accepting everything without question. It meant protecting my own well-being while still caring deeply for others. One evening, I shared this realization with my friend, Linda. She listened carefully and nodded. "You are learning to love yourself in a way that is healthy," she said. "That is a powerful thing." Her words stayed with me. I knew that this journey was about more than just my family. It was about rediscovering who I was and what I deserved. The rain continued to fall outside, but inside, I felt a quiet strength growing. The storm in my heart was calming, replaced by hope. I finally understood that family is not perfect. It is messy, complicated, and sometimes painful. But it is also capable of healing, if we have the courage to face the truth. And I had that courage now. With this understanding, I was ready to take the next step, to rebuild, to forgive, and to find peace. Because sometimes the hardest lessons lead us to the deepest wisdom. The moment I decided to walk away felt like stepping into cold water. It shocked my senses and slowed my breath. After all the confusion, hurt, and attempts to understand, I knew I needed space. I needed time away from the people who had hurt me, even if they were my family. This was not easy to admit, but it was necessary. I packed a small bag with a few clothes, my journal, and some books. I told myself this was not giving up. It was protecting my heart and mind. Sometimes, walking away means gaining strength to come back stronger, or finding a new path entirely. I remember standing at the doorstep, looking back once before closing the door behind me. The house, once filled with laughter and love, now felt cold and distant. It was the place where so many promises were broken. I did not want to feel trapped there anymore. I caught a taxi to a small bed and breakfast outside the city. It was quiet and peaceful, surrounded by tall trees and soft wind. For the first time in weeks, I breathed deeply and felt a calm I had almost forgotten. In that quiet place, I began to face my feelings honestly. The sadness was heavy, but it was real. The anger simmered beneath the surface, but I let it be there without trying to push it away. I cried often, sometimes without knowing why. Crying was a release, a way to let the pain flow out. At night, when the world was still, I opened my journal and wrote letters to the family I left behind. I wrote about the pain of being abandoned, the shock of the hurricane night when they left me alone at the bus stop. I wrote about how their actions shattered my trust. But I also wrote about hope. Hope that one day, things might be different. Each morning, I walked in the woods near the bed and breakfast. The trees seemed to whisper stories of resilience and survival. I listened. Slowly, the strength inside me began to grow. I reminded myself that I was not alone, even if I felt lonely. Being away gave me time to think about what I wanted next. I realized that my life did not have to be defined by this betrayal. I was more than the hurt. I was still whole, still worthy of love and respect. I started to dream again. Simple dreams of traveling, learning new things, meeting new people. Dreams that I had put aside for too long while caring for others. I called my old friend, Margaret. She listened without judgment and reminded me of my worth. "You are stronger than you know," she said. "This time away is your chance to find yourself again." Those words were like a gentle light in the darkness. I held on to them tightly. Days turned into weeks. I stopped checking my phone constantly. I let go of the need to know what my family was doing. I focused on my healing. One afternoon, I went to a small cafe nearby. The owner, a kind woman named Sarah, welcomed me with a warm smile. We talked about books, music, and life. It was the first time in a long while that I felt a simple joy, the joy of human connection without pain. That evening, I looked out of my window at the stars. I thought about the future. I knew the road ahead would not be easy. The hurt was still there, deep inside me. But I also knew that walking away was not the end. It was the beginning of something new. I would return to my family, but on my own terms. I would not let their mistakes define me. I would set boundaries, demand respect, and protect my peace. Walking away had given me the gift of perspective. I saw clearly now what I needed to heal: honesty, space, and time. Most of all, I saw the strength inside me, a strength that had been there all along, waiting to be claimed. The storm had changed everything. It had broken some things, yes, but it had also opened a door. I stepped through that door with hope, because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to walk away, not out of anger or defeat, but out of love for yourself. And that is what I chose. Even though I had walked away, the pain did not leave me. It stayed with me, like a shadow that followed me everywhere. I thought that distance would make the hurt disappear, but it did not work that way. Sometimes, pain takes time to heal. Sometimes, it feels as if it is a part of you. Each morning when I woke up, I felt the weight of sadness pressing down on my chest. I missed the family I once had, the warmth that seemed lost forever. My heart ached for the moments we shared before the storm, before everything fell apart. I told myself that I was strong, and I was proud of myself for leaving a place where I felt unloved. But there were nights when tears came quietly, without warning. I missed their voices. I missed the simple things: birthdays, dinners, laughter. Those memories made me feel both comforted and broken. Pain is strange. It is like a wound that does not heal in a straight line. Sometimes it feels sharp and sudden. Other times it is a dull ache that never quite leaves you. I learned to live with it, even though I wished I did not have to. I kept writing in my journal. Writing helped me sort through my feelings. I wrote about the betrayal and the loneliness, but I also wrote about the hope that still lived deep inside me. Writing was my way to speak to myself when no one else would listen. One day, I went for a walk in the park. The trees were bare, and the wind was cold. I saw a mother and her child playing together, laughing without care. It made me wonder if my family felt the same emptiness I did. Did they miss me? Did they regret what they had done? I wanted to call them. I wanted to hear their voices and ask if they thought about me. But I was afraid. Afraid that they would say no. Afraid that the silence between us was too big to cross. So I kept walking, feeling the cold air on my face and the pain inside my heart. It was a lonely walk, but it was also a step forward. Sometimes I found comfort in small things: a warm cup of tea, a good book, or a song that touched my soul. These little moments gave me strength. They reminded me that life could still have beauty, even in sadness. I talked to Margaret often. She was my rock during this time. She told me that pain is part of healing. She said that it was okay to feel broken, because that meant I was still human. Her words were gentle, but they helped me hold on. I realized that healing is not about forgetting the pain. It is about learning to live with it and letting it change you for the better. It is about finding peace inside the storm. Some days, the pain was so strong that I wanted to give up. But then I remembered why I left. I left because I deserved respect and love. I left because I wanted to find myself again. Those reasons gave me hope. I started to see the pain as a teacher. It taught me about my limits and my strength. It showed me that I could survive even the darkest times. Even though the pain stayed, I was not alone. I had friends like Margaret and new people like Sarah at the cafe. I had myself, and that was enough for now. I knew that the pain would not last forever. I believed that one day it would soften and become part of my story, a story of courage and growth. Until then, I would keep moving forward, one day at a time. The pain stayed, but so did I. Sometimes when the house was quiet and the evening light softened through the curtains, I found myself thinking about the past. I missed it more than I expected. The past felt like a warm blanket, wrapping me in memories that were both sweet and painful. I missed the times when my family was whole, when my children were young, and the house was full of laughter and noise. I remembered birthdays, holidays, and simple days filled with shared meals and stories. Those moments felt like treasures, and I held them close to my heart. Looking back, I saw how life had changed. The happy times seemed distant, like a photo fading over time. I wished I could go back and hold those moments again, even if just for a little while. But I knew that was not possible. The past was gone, and I could only carry its memories. I thought about my son, David. When he was little, he loved to run in the garden and chase butterflies. His laughter was a melody I still hear sometimes when the wind blows softly. I wondered if he remembered those days too, or if they were lost to him now, buried under the weight of what came later. Sometimes, I felt a deep sadness because the past was gone. But I also felt gratitude. Gratitude for having had those moments, for the love that once filled our home. Even if things changed, those memories were a part of me. They reminded me who I was before the storm. I also missed my husband, Robert. He was not perfect, but we shared years together. We built a life with hopes and dreams. I remembered our quiet talks in the evenings and the way he used to hold my hand when things got difficult. I missed that connection, even though it had faded long ago. The past was a place of comfort and pain. It was where I learned to love, to hope, and sometimes to hurt. It shaped me, even if it also broke me. I realized that missing the past did not mean I wanted to return to it. It meant I was human. It meant that I was feeling the loss deeply, and that was okay. Loss is part of life, but so is healing. Sometimes I found myself looking at old photographs. Faces smiled back at me, frozen in time. I traced the lines of my children's faces and wondered what they were thinking now. I saw the joy in those pictures and the promise of better days. Those photos were windows into another world. A world where love was simpler and less complicated. I let myself feel those emotions, even if they made me cry. Crying was part of healing too. I missed my family's voices. I missed the way they used to call me mom or grandma with love and excitement. Now, there was silence or cold words that cut deeper than any storm. Sometimes I caught myself, hoping for a call, a message, or even a small sign that they still cared, but those hopes often ended in disappointment. That made missing the past even harder. I talked to Margaret about this. She told me that missing the past was natural. She said it was like missing a place where your heart once lived. She reminded me that while I missed those times, I was also growing into a new life, one that I could shape with my own hands. Her words helped me see the past differently, not as a place to return, but as a part of my journey. A foundation that gave me strength to move forward. I began to think about how I could honor the past, without letting it keep me trapped. I wanted to remember the good times, but also to open my heart to new moments. It was not easy. The past was heavy, and the pain often stayed close. But I believed that with time, I could carry those memories lightly, like a gentle song that plays softly in the background. I started to make small changes in my daily life. I planted flowers in the garden where my son once played. I cooked recipes that my mother had taught me. These actions connected me to the past while grounding me in the present. Sometimes I would sit quietly and tell myself stories about the past, not to live there, but to appreciate how far I had come. I reminded myself that missing the past was a sign of love and memory, not weakness. As the days passed, the pain of missing the past softened. It became less sharp and more like a gentle ache, a quiet companion in my life. I still miss the past. I think I always will. But I also started to see that missing the past and living in the present could exist together. I was learning to balance the two, like holding a fragile vase with care. It took patience, but I was ready to try. The past was a part of me, and so was the future. I would carry both with me, one step at a time. And for now, that was enough. One afternoon, when the sky was a soft gray and the rain was just beginning to fall, I decided to call my old friend, Ellen. I had not spoken to her in months, but something told me I needed to hear a kind voice, someone who could listen without judgment. Ellen had always been a steady presence in my life, even when everything else felt uncertain. I took a deep breath before dialing her number. The phone rang twice, and then her warm voice answered. "Helen, it has been so long. How are you?" she asked cheerfully. I smiled, though a little sadly. "I am managing, Ellen. It has been difficult lately. I thought maybe we could talk." "Of course," she said. "I am here for you." We settled into a comfortable rhythm, as if no time had passed at all. I told her about the storm, both the one outside and the one inside me. I spoke of the silence from my family, the pain of being abandoned, and the ache of missing what once was. Ellen listened patiently. She did not interrupt or offer quick answers. Instead, she let me speak, and that alone was a great comfort. When I finished, Ellen said softly, "Helen, I know this has been very hard. You have been carrying so much on your own. But I want you to remember that you are not alone." Her words felt like a gentle hand on my shoulder. I had been so wrapped up in my own thoughts that I forgot how much support was still around me. Ellen reminded me of the strength I had always shown, even when I did not see it myself. "You have faced storms before, Helen. You have survived, and you will continue to do so." I thought about those words. It was true. I had been through difficult times before, and each time, I found a way to keep going. But this time felt different. The pain was deeper, and the wound seemed harder to heal. Ellen suggested that I try to share my feelings more often, not just with her, but with others I trusted. "Sometimes just speaking aloud what is in your heart can help to ease the burden," she said. I nodded, even though she could not see me. The idea was both frightening and hopeful. I had spent so long hiding my pain that it felt strange to imagine opening up. We talked about small steps I could take, maybe start a journal, write letters that I might never send, or meet someone new at a local community group. Ellen believed that these little actions could help me rebuild my confidence and find new sources of joy. She also reminded me to be gentle with myself. Healing is not a race. It is a slow journey, and it is okay to have days when I felt weak or sad. Those feelings did not mean I was failing. They meant I was human. Before we ended the call, Ellen shared a memory from our past. She recalled a time when we had faced challenges together, supporting each other through thick and thin. That memory brought a small smile to my face. "I am here for you, Helen," Ellen said. "Whenever you need to talk, just call me. You do not have to carry this alone." After we said goodbye, I felt lighter. The heavy weight in my chest had eased just a little. Talking to Ellen reminded me that I was not as isolated as I had believed. That evening, I sat by the window, watching the rain fall softly against the glass. I thought about the conversation and how important it was to have someone who cared. I realized that reaching out for help was not a sign of weakness. It was a sign of courage. It meant I was ready to take steps toward healing. The rain outside was gentle now, like a quiet promise that storms do not last forever. I decided to take Ellen's advice and start writing in a journal. I found an old notebook and opened it carefully. The pages were blank, waiting to hold my thoughts and feelings. Wrote slowly at first, simple sentences about my day and how I felt. Writing helped me see my emotions clearly. It was like speaking to a friend who listened without interruption. Each day I added a little more. Sometimes I wrote about happy memories. Other times, I let the sadness pour out onto the page. The journal became a place where I could be honest and kind to myself. I also began to notice small moments of joy. A flower blooming in the garden, a warm cup of tea, a kind word from a neighbor. These small things helped me feel connected to the world again. Talking to Ellen had reminded me that I was not alone. There were people who cared, and I could find comfort in their presence. The path ahead was still uncertain, but I no longer felt so afraid. I had taken the first step toward healing by sharing my story and accepting help. I knew the journey would be long and sometimes difficult, but I was ready to face it, one day at a time. And that made all the difference. There comes a moment in life when holding on hurts more than letting go. I reached that moment one quiet morning, sitting alone in my living room. The house was still, except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Outside, the world was waking up, but inside, I felt a heavy silence pressing down on my heart. I knew it was time to say goodbye. Not just to a person, but to a dream. A hope that had once kept me going, but now only caused pain. I thought about my family, about the distance that had grown between us. I thought about the moments of laughter that had once filled this house, and how those moments now felt like echoes from a distant past. Saying goodbye was not easy. It was a choice I had avoided for a long time, hoping things might change. But deep inside, I realized that some wounds do not heal simply by wishing. I took a deep breath and picked up my phone. I wrote a message to my son. I kept it simple and honest. I need to say goodbye for now. This is not easy, but I need to find peace. I hesitated before sending. What if he did not understand? What if this pushed him further away? But I knew that I had to do this for myself, not for anyone else. I put the phone down and looked around my home. Every corner held a memory. Some were painful, but many were beautiful. I promised myself that I would carry the good memories with me, even as I closed the door on the bad. Later that day, I packed a small bag. It was not a big trip, just a walk to the nearby park where I often found comfort in the quiet green. I wanted to feel the sun on my face, the earth beneath my feet, and remind myself that life still had beauty. At the park, I found a bench under a large oak tree. I sat down and let the wind play with my hair. The leaves rustled softly, like a whisper of encouragement. I closed my eyes and thought about the meaning of goodbye. It was not just about leaving someone behind. It was about accepting reality. It was about saying to myself that I deserved kindness, respect, and peace. Even if those things did not come from those I loved most, in that moment, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. The sadness was because I was letting go of something I once treasured. The relief was because I was choosing to protect my heart. I opened my eyes and saw a family playing nearby. A mother, father, and 2 children laughed together. I smiled softly, remembering my own family in happier times. Tears welled up, but I did not turn away from them. I let them fall freely. Crying did not make me weak. It made me human. I thought about the future, uncertain, but open. Saying goodbye was not the end. It was a new beginning. That evening, I wrote again in my journal. I wrote about the goodbye and what it meant to me. Goodbye is not the closing of a door forever. It is the opening of a window to new possibilities. I also wrote a letter to my family. I did not send it. It was for me to say everything I could not say out loud. I loved you with all my heart. I hoped for more. But I understand now that I must love myself first. Writing helped me feel lighter. It was as if I had taken the weight of the goodbye and placed it safely on the page. In the days that followed, I continued to feel the pain of separation. It was a quiet ache that would come and go like the tide. But I also felt moments of strength growing inside me. I started to spend more time outside, walking slowly and noticing the small things. The way sunlight fell through the trees, the song of a bird, the smell of fresh rain. I talked to Ellen often. Her friendship was a steady light, reminding me that I was not alone. Most importantly, I began to talk to myself with kindness. Instead of blaming or doubting, I told myself that it was okay to feel hurt. It was okay to choose peace. Goodbye was a decision to protect my heart and to open space for healing. I knew that healing would take time. There would be days when I missed what I had lost. But I also knew that each day was a chance to move forward. I thought about the woman I wanted to become. Strong, peaceful, and free from the shadows of pain. Saying goodbye was not about forgetting. It was about remembering what mattered and letting go of what did not. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt a quiet hope. The storm inside me was beginning to calm. I was ready to face tomorrow with a gentle heart and a clearer mind. Goodbye was not the end of my story. It was the start of a new chapter, one where I chose myself, and that made all the difference. Being alone is something I never expected to face so fully. After saying goodbye, I found myself in a quiet space I had not known for many years. The house felt larger, the rooms emptier, and the silence louder than before. At first, the loneliness was a heavy weight pressing down on my chest. I felt a sharp sting every time I entered the kitchen or walked down the hallway without hearing a familiar voice. Yet, in that stillness, I also began to discover something new, an unexpected strength inside myself. Being alone did not mean being broken or forgotten. It meant having the chance to understand who I was without the noise and confusion of others. Every morning, I woke up to a peaceful house. There was no rush or loud arguments, no voices calling or doors slamming. Just me, my thoughts, and the soft light that came through the window. It was a strange feeling at first, but slowly it became something I welcomed. I learned to enjoy my own company. I started with small things. I made myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the world outside. Birds flew from tree to tree. Children played in the distance, and the wind gently moved the leaves. Those simple moments reminded me that life was still moving forward, even if mine felt uncertain. I began to take walks every day. Walking alone gave me time to think and reflect. Sometimes, I stopped to breathe deeply or feel the cool breeze on my face. Those walks became a kind of meditation, a way to clear my mind and find peace in the present moment. I noticed how the small things that I had ignored before, like the smell of fresh grass or the sound of a neighbor's laughter, now brought me comfort. It was as if the world was quietly inviting me to live again, in a slower, gentler way. At times, the loneliness was difficult. Some nights I lay awake, thinking about my family and the choices that had led me here. I wondered if they missed me, or if I had become invisible to them. Those thoughts hurt deeply, but I reminded myself that healing was not a straight path. It had twists and turns, good days and bad days. I learned to be patient with myself. I also discovered new hobbies that filled my time. I started reading books I had always wanted to read, but never found the time for. The stories took me to different places and helped me forget my worries for a little while. I tried cooking new recipes, experimenting with flavors and ingredients. It was a small way to care for myself and enjoy the simple pleasure of creating something with my own hands. Sometimes I invited Ellen over for tea, and we talked about everything and nothing. Her friendship was like a warm light in the dark. Most importantly, I began to listen to my own needs and feelings. For years, I had put others first. My family, my responsibilities, my worries. Now, I was learning to put myself first. It was not selfish. It was necessary. I realized that being alone was not a punishment, but a chance to grow. It was an opportunity to heal my heart and find peace inside myself. In this quiet time, I started to write in my journal every day. I wrote about my feelings, my hopes, and my fears. Writing helped me understand myself better and gave me a place to release my emotions safely. I wrote about the pain of being abandoned and the courage it took to say goodbye. I wrote about the moments of sadness and the small victories of each day. Through writing, I found a voice that had been buried beneath years of hurt and disappointment. That voice was gentle but strong, and it reminded me that I was still here, still fighting, still alive. Sometimes I talked to myself out loud. I told myself that it was okay to be scared, that it was okay to cry, and that it was okay to take time to heal. I told myself that I was worthy of love and respect, even if others could not see it right now. Being alone gave me the space to find that truth. I also began to dream again. Not big dreams of changing the world, but small dreams of happiness and peace. I imagined days filled with calm mornings, kind conversations, and quiet evenings. Those dreams gave me hope. I understood that being alone was not forever. One day, I might open my heart to others again. But for now, I needed this time for myself. I was learning to be my own friend, my own support, and my own family. In this time of solitude, I found a new kind of freedom. I was free from the expectations and judgments of others. I was free to be myself, without fear or shame, and that freedom was precious. I knew that being alone was only one part of my journey. It was a chapter, not the whole story. But it was a chapter that taught me who I truly was. I was stronger than I had believed. I was worthy of love, peace, and happiness. I was ready to face whatever came next. Alone, but never truly lonely. I am not the same woman I was before. That fact has settled deep inside me like a quiet truth I can no longer ignore. The years have shaped me. Some days gently, some days with fierce storms that tested everything I thought I knew about myself. Now, I look in the mirror and see someone different. Someone who has lived through pain, loss, and loneliness, yet has come out stronger on the other side. Change is not always visible at first. It often starts as small shifts inside us. At times, it feels like the earth beneath our feet is moving, slowly, and we cannot tell if we are falling or rising. I have felt both. But today, I know that I am rising. The woman who once relied on the approval of others now trusts her own judgment. She listens more closely to her heart and less to the noise around her. It is a new way of living, one that feels unfamiliar, but true. I remember the moments when I doubted myself, when I asked, "Am I strong enough? Am I worthy of love? Can I survive this alone?" Those questions haunted me in the dark, but with time, I learned to answer them with courage and kindness. I am strong enough. I am worthy of love, and I can survive. I have learned that strength does not mean never feeling pain or weakness. Real strength is accepting those feelings and moving forward anyway. It is giving yourself permission to be human. This change in me has also affected the way I see my family. I no longer feel the desperate need to fix or please them. Instead, I understand that their choices are their own, and I cannot control their actions. That realization was painful but freeing. I am beginning to set boundaries where there were none before. I say no without guilt. I protect my energy and my peace. This is not selfish. It is necessary for my healing. I have also discovered new parts of myself that I had forgotten or ignored. I enjoy quiet moments alone, reading books that inspire me, listening to music that moves my soul, and spending time in nature. These simple joys bring me peace and remind me of the beauty still present in the world. My confidence grows little by little each day. I speak up for myself now. I do not shrink away from difficult conversations. I am learning to stand tall even when my heart feels fragile. At times, I surprise myself with how much I have changed. Old fears and doubts no longer hold the same power over me. I face challenges with a calm determination that was once impossible to imagine. This journey has also helped me understand forgiveness in a deeper way. Forgiving others is not about forgetting what happened or excusing hurtful behavior. It is about releasing the hold that pain has over my life. It is a gift I give to myself. I am working on forgiving those who abandon me, even though they may never ask for forgiveness. This is not easy, but it is healing. More importantly, I am learning to forgive myself for mistakes I have made, for moments when I felt weak, and for times when I put others' needs above my own. I am not the same because I have grown through these lessons. I am learning to live with grace. Sometimes I still feel sadness and loneliness. Those feelings have not disappeared, but now they do not define me. Instead, they are like waves on the ocean, sometimes strong, sometimes calm, but always moving forward. I find strength in small victories, getting out of bed on a hard day, smiling at a stranger, saying no when I need to. These moments build my new self, piece by piece. I also see the world with new eyes. I appreciate kindness more deeply and understand that everyone has their own struggles. This awareness has made me more compassionate, not only to others, but also to myself. My past no longer feels like a chain that holds me down. It is a story that has shaped me, yes, but it is not the whole story. I am writing new chapters now. I have begun to dream again, with realistic hope. Not the grand fantasies of youth, but small, meaningful goals that bring joy and purpose. I want to travel, learn new skills, and build friendships that nourish my soul. This new version of myself is imperfect, but whole. I accept my flaws and celebrate my strengths. I am no longer afraid to show who I really am. I am proud of the woman I have become. Being different is not a loss. It is a gain. It means I have lived, I have felt, and I have grown. It means I am alive. The road ahead is still uncertain. There will be challenges, and I will face them as I always have, with courage, honesty, and an open heart. I am not the same, and I am grateful for that. Today, I stand with quiet confidence, ready for whatever comes next. In the darkest moments of my life, when sadness and loneliness wrapped around me like a heavy fog, a small light began to shine. It was faint at first, a tiny spark of hope that I almost did not notice, but it was enough to remind me that not all was lost. This small light came from an unexpected place. It was not a grand event or a sudden miracle. Instead, it was a simple act of kindness from a stranger, a smile from a neighbor, and a moment of peace that I found within myself. I remember the day clearly. It was a cold morning, and the sky was gray with heavy clouds. I was walking slowly down the street near my home, feeling the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on me. My steps were heavy, and my thoughts darker than the sky above. As I passed a small cafe, the door opened and a woman stepped outside. She was an older woman, perhaps in her 70s, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She looked at me and said, "Good morning. You look like you could use a cup of coffee." Her words surprised me. I had not spoken to anyone that morning, nor had I expected a kind greeting. I nodded quietly and accepted her invitation. Inside the cafe, we sat together at a small table by the window. She listened as I shared a little of my story. Not all, the details, but enough to let her understand that I was hurting. She did not offer advice or judge me. Instead, she simply listened. That simple kindness made me feel seen and heard. It was the first time in a long time that I felt connected to another person, without fear or shame. From that day, I began to notice more small lights around me. Friend who called to check on me, a neighbor who offered to help with my groceries, a phone message from an old acquaintance wishing me well. These small acts reminded me that kindness still exists in the world. More importantly, the small light I found inside myself began to grow. I started to believe that I could heal, that I could find joy again. It was not an easy path. Some days, the light flickered and almost went out. But I held on to it, knowing that every small moment of hope mattered. I started to care for myself in ways I had forgotten. I took walks in the fresh air, even when I felt tired. I cooked simple meals that made me feel nourished. I read books that inspired me to think differently about my life. Slowly, I learned to celebrate small victories. I smiled at myself in the mirror. I said kind words out loud. I allowed myself to dream again, even if those dreams were small and cautious. The small light also gave me courage to face difficult emotions. Instead of running from pain or burying sadness, I sat with those feelings and let them pass through me. I cried when I needed to. I wrote in my journal to understand my thoughts better. This light taught me that healing is not a straight line. It is a journey with ups and downs. But as long as I kept moving forward, no matter how slowly, I was making progress. One evening, as I watched the sunset from my living room window, I realized something important. The small light inside me was no longer just a flicker. It had become a steady glow that warmed my heart. It was a symbol of my resilience, my strength, and my hope. That moment filled me with gratitude. I was grateful for the challenges that had shaped me, for the people who had shown kindness, and for the small light that had kept me going when everything else seemed dark. I understand now that we all have small lights inside us. Sometimes life covers those lights with fear, pain, or disappointment. but if we look carefully, we can find them again. For me, this light is a promise that no matter what happens, I will keep moving forward. I will keep believing in myself and in the possibility of happiness. The small light also reminds me to be kind to others. Everyone carries their own struggles and fears. A simple smile, a word of encouragement, or a listening ear can be the small light that someone else needs. I want to be that small light for others, to offer hope when they feel lost, to share kindness when they feel hurt. This is part of my healing too. As I continue my journey, I carry this light with me. It does not mean that I have forgotten the past, or that pain no longer exists. It means that I have chosen to face the future with courage and love. I know there will be storms ahead. Life is not always gentle, but I am no longer afraid of the dark because I have found the small light inside myself. That small light is my guide, my strength, and my hope. And for anyone listening, I hope you find your own small light too. It may be hidden under the weight of your struggles, but it is there. Hold on to it, nurture it, and let it grow. Before we move on to the next part of my story, I want to thank you for listening with an open heart. Your presence means more to me than words can say. Beginning again is never easy. It is like stepping onto a new path without knowing where it will lead. For me, it felt both frightening and hopeful at the same time. After so much pain, betrayal, and loneliness, I was ready to try again. To find myself. To build a life that belonged to me. The first step was the hardest. I woke up one morning and made a simple decision. I would care for myself. Not just in small ways, but in a real, meaningful way. I knew I needed to be patient. Healing does not happen overnight, but I promised myself I would try. I started with my daily routine. Before, my days were filled with worry and sadness. Now, I planned small moments that made me feel good. I made my bed every morning. It was a small act, but it gave me a sense of order and control. I prepared breakfast slowly, tasting the food and appreciating the flavors. I took time to breathe deeply and enjoy the quiet. Self-care became my new priority. I went to bed earlier and slept as much as my body needed. I drank more water and tried to eat healthy meals. I went for walks in the park near my home. Nature helped me feel calm and grounded. The green trees, the fresh air, and the sunlight made me feel alive again. At first, I was afraid of being alone with my thoughts, but I learned to welcome them instead of running away. I started writing in a journal. I wrote about my feelings, my dreams, and my fears. Putting my thoughts on paper helped me understand myself better. It was like talking to a friend who never judged me. I also began to explore new interests. I joined a local art class, something I had always wanted to do but never had the time for. Painting gave me a way to express emotions I could not put into words. The colors on the canvas were like a window to my soul. The art teacher and classmates were kind and supportive. They did not know my story, but they offered friendship without questions. This new connection gave me hope that I could trust people again. In these small but important ways, I began to rebuild my confidence. I realized that I was stronger than I thought. The storms in my life had not destroyed me. They had taught me valuable lessons about resilience and courage. I also started to set boundaries with my family. After the pain they caused me, I knew I had to protect myself. I stopped answering calls when I did not feel ready. I did not rush to fix everything or please them anymore. Saying no became a powerful act of self-love. At times, old doubts and fears returned. I questioned whether I was doing the right thing. Was I being too hard on myself? Was I pushing people away who still cared? These questions were hard to face, but I kept reminding myself that healing is a process. One day, while walking through the neighborhood, I found a small garden. It was not perfect, but it was cared for with love. Flowers grew in bright colors, and bees buzzed happily. The garden was a symbol of new beginnings, and I felt inspired. I started planting my own small garden on my balcony. Caring for the plants became a daily ritual. Watching the seeds grow into flowers reminded me that life is about patience and nurturing. I also made peace with the past. I accepted that I could not change what happened. I forgave myself for any mistakes I made. This did not mean forgetting or excusing the hurt, but choosing to move forward without carrying the weight of blame. Slowly, I felt the weight on my shoulders lift. The sadness was still there sometimes, but it was softer. I was no longer defined by my pain. I began to dream about the future again. Not grand or impossible dreams, but small hopes that made my heart light. Maybe I would travel one day. Maybe I would write a book or open a small cafe. The important thing was that I was open to possibilities. This new beginning was not perfect or easy. There were moments of doubt and loneliness, but every step I took was a victory. I was learning to trust myself again. I want to tell you, dear listener, that it is never too late to begin again. No matter how dark the past may seem, there is always a way forward. It may be slow and gentle, but it is possible. If you are listening to this and feeling lost, please know that you are not alone. Start with small steps. Care for yourself in simple ways. Be patient and kind to your heart. I believe in the power of new beginnings. They bring hope, healing, and the chance to live fully. Thank you for walking this part of the journey with me. I am grateful for your presence and your heart. After I had begun to find my own strength and peace, something unexpected happened. He tried to come back into my life. The man who had once abandoned me in the storm, the one who had left me standing alone at the bus stop during the hurricane, suddenly appeared again. I did not expect it, and I was not sure how to feel. It was a quiet afternoon when my phone rang. I saw his name on the screen. My heart beat faster, and for a moment I hesitated. Should I answer? Should I let him back in? The memories of that terrible day came rushing back, the rain pouring down, the cold wind cutting through my coat, and the pain of being left behind. I decided to answer. His voice was soft and careful. He sounded different from the man I had known before. He said he wanted to talk, to explain, to ask for forgiveness. I listened, but I did not interrupt. I needed to hear his words, even if they hurt. He spoke about his mistakes, about how lost he had been, about how sorry he was for leaving me alone in the worst moment of my life. His voice trembled with emotion. Part of me wanted to believe him. Part of me hoped that things could be different now. But another part of me was guarded, like a wall built from years of pain. He asked if we could meet. He said he wanted to make things right, to show me that he had changed. I agreed to meet him, but I was clear. I would not be hurt again. The day we met was quiet and tense. We sat across from each other at a small cafe. The air was thick with unspoken words. He looked at me with regret and hope. I looked back with caution and strength. He told me about the difficult times he had faced since that stormy day, about how his life had fallen apart after he left me, how he realized too late what he had lost. He said he wanted a second chance, not just with me, but to be a better person. I wanted to ask many questions. Why did he leave? Did he think about me at all? How could he abandon me when I needed him most? But I held back. I was not ready for answers. I needed time to heal on my own. Instead, I told him how his actions had hurt me deeply, how I had felt abandoned, invisible, and alone. I shared the pain that had stayed with me for months. It was difficult to speak these words, but it was necessary. He listened quietly without interrupting. I could see that he understood. That he was truly sorry. When we finished talking, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief because I had spoken my truth. Sadness because the past could not be changed. After that day, he reached out a few more times. Sometimes with kind messages, sometimes asking if we could meet again. I thought carefully before answering. I did not want to rush into anything. I had learned the importance of setting boundaries. I realized that he could try to come back, but it was my choice whether to let him. I was no longer the same woman who had waited alone in the storm. I was stronger now, wiser. I knew my worth. It was difficult to let go of old hopes and dreams. I had imagined that we would heal together, that he would be there for me again. But I also knew that forgiveness did not mean forgetting, and it did not mean inviting pain back into my life. I chose to focus on myself, on my growth and healing. I wanted to build a future based on respect, love, and honesty, not on broken promises. One evening, as I walked through the park, I thought about the storm again, how it had changed everything, how it had tested me in ways I never expected. But I also thought about how I had survived, how I had begun again. I realized that sometimes people come back into our lives not to stay, but to teach us lessons, to show us what we deserve, to remind us of our strength. He had tried to come back, and I had listened. I had spoken my truth. But in the end, I chose myself. If you are listening and someone you cared for tries to come back after hurting you, remember this. It is okay to listen. It is okay to speak your feelings. But it is also okay to protect your heart. You are the keeper of your own peace. You decide who deserves a place in your life. Thank you for being with me on this journey. Your strength inspires me. Together we keep moving forward. When I look at myself today, I see a woman transformed. I am not the same person who once stood alone at the bus stop in the hurricane, waiting and wondering if anyone would come back for me. I have changed. I have grown. And I have learned more about who I am than I ever thought possible. The pain of betrayal and abandonment still lingers, but it no longer controls me. It is a part of my story, yes, but it is not my whole story. I am more than the hurt I endured. I am stronger than the silence that once filled my days. I am wiser than the fears that tried to hold me back. After the storm passed and after he tried to come back, I spent many quiet nights reflecting on everything that had happened. I asked myself difficult questions. Who am I without his presence? What do I truly want from life? How can I rebuild trust, starting with trusting myself? These questions were not easy to answer. Sometimes I felt overwhelmed by the weight of my own emotions. Other times, I felt a deep sadness for the years I had lost waiting for someone who might never truly return. But slowly, I began to find clarity. I realized that being different now means I do not settle for less than I deserve. I no longer allow myself to be defined by others' choices or mistakes. I no longer hide my pain or pretend that everything is fine when it is not. Instead, I face my feelings head-on. I allow myself to be vulnerable, and in that vulnerability, I find strength. Being different now means that I choose to be kind to myself. I give myself permission to heal at my own pace. I speak to myself with compassion, just as I would speak to a dear friend. I have learned that self-love is not selfish. It is necessary. I also understand that my worth is not tied to anyone else's approval. It is not dependent on someone staying or leaving. It is inherent. It is who I am. This truth has become the foundation of my new life. Because of this, I have started to set healthy boundaries. I am careful with my time and energy. I say no when something does not feel right. I surround myself with people who respect and support me. I no longer chase after those who do not value my presence. I am different now because I have learned to listen to my intuition. When something feels wrong, I trust that feeling. When I need space, I take it without guilt. When I want joy, I seek it without apology. This transformation has not been easy. There have been moments when old fears crept back in. Moments when loneliness felt unbearable. Moments when I questioned if I could truly move forward. But each time I reminded myself why I must keep going. I am different now because I have forgiven. Not just those who hurt me, but myself. I forgive the times I doubted my own worth. I forgive the times I stayed silent instead of speaking up. I forgive the times I wished for something that was never meant to be. Forgiveness has freed me from the chains of bitterness and regret. It has opened the door to peace and hope, and it has made room for new beginnings. I have found new joys in simple things: a warm cup of tea on a cold morning, the sound of birds outside my window, the smile of a stranger. These small moments remind me that life is beautiful, even after pain. Being different now also means that I am ready for new opportunities. I am open to new friendships, new experiences, and new dreams. I do not carry the past as a burden. Instead, I carry it as a lesson that has made me resilient. Sometimes, I look in the mirror and see the lines on my face, the marks of time and experience. I see the eyes that have cried and laughed. I see the hands that have held on and let go. And I feel proud of the woman who looks back. I am different now because I have chosen to live fully and authentically. I do not hide behind fear or shame. I speak my truth with courage and grace. I stand tall, knowing that my story is mine to tell. To anyone listening who feels lost or broken, I want you to know that change is possible. Healing is possible. Strength is possible. You are not alone. We all have moments when we feel defeated, when the storms of life seem too strong to weather. But inside each of us is a light that cannot be extinguished, a light that grows brighter the more we care for ourselves. I am different now, and so can you be. Thank you for walking this path with me. Your presence gives me hope. Together, we are stronger. Choosing myself was the hardest decision I have ever made. It sounds simple when I say it now, but at the time, it felt like standing at the edge of a vast, unknown ocean, afraid to step forward. For years, I put others first: my family, my husband, my children. I thought that was what love meant. But I learned the hard way that if I do not choose myself, no one else will. After the storm and the heartbreak, I reached a point where I had to decide what kind of life I wanted. Would I continue to wait for people who did not value me? Would I keep hoping for apologies that might never come? Or would I stand up and say, I deserve better. I deserve to be happy. I deserve to be whole. It was not easy to say those words aloud at first. I felt guilty. I worried about what others would think. I feared being alone. But deep inside, a small voice whispered, choose yourself. Choosing myself meant setting boundaries for the first time in my life. It meant saying no when someone asked for too much. It meant protecting my heart from further pain. It meant valuing my time and energy as precious. I started by looking at my daily routine. I asked myself, am I spending time doing things that nourish my soul? Am I surrounding myself with people who lift me up or tear me down? Am I being honest about what I need? The answers were not always comfortable. I realized that some relationships were toxic. Some habits were harmful. Some dreams had been buried under years of sacrifice. But I also realized that it was never too late to change. I chose to slow down. I stopped rushing to please others. I learned to listen to my body when it needed rest. I took long walks alone, breathing in the fresh air, feeling the sun on my face. These moments of peace helped me reconnect with myself. Choosing myself also meant embracing my passions. For many years, I had put aside the things I loved because I thought they were not practical or important. Now, I allowed myself to paint again, to write, to sing softly in the kitchen. These small acts of joy reminded me who I truly was. I also began to take care of my health. I started eating better, drinking more water, and going to bed earlier. I treated my body as a temple, not a burden. Each day I felt stronger, more alive. One of the hardest parts of choosing myself was learning to say no without apology. When my son asked me for money to fix his car, I said no. When my daughter wanted me to attend every family event, even when I felt exhausted, I said no. I stopped overcommitting. I stopped feeling responsible for everyone's happiness except my own. This did not mean I stopped loving my family. I still cared deeply. But I learned that love does not mean losing yourself. Real love respects boundaries. Real love allows space for growth. Choosing myself also meant forgiving those who hurt me, but not for their sake, for mine. I forgave my family for abandoning me at that bus stop in the hurricane. I forgave myself for believing that I was not worthy of better treatment. Forgiveness lifted a heavy weight from my shoulders. With forgiveness came freedom. I no longer carried anger or resentment in my heart. I could breathe easier. I could open my heart to new possibilities. One day, as I stood by the window watching the rain, I felt a deep sense of peace. I whispered to myself, I choose me. I choose my happiness. I choose my life. Choosing myself is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice. Some days are easier than others. Some days, old fears try to pull me back, but I remind myself why I made this choice. I choose myself because I am worthy of love and respect. I choose myself because my happiness matters. I choose myself because my life is precious. To anyone listening who feels lost or trapped in a cycle of pain and sacrifice, I want you to know this. You have the power to choose yourself. You deserve it. You are enough just as you are. It may not be easy, and it may not happen overnight. But step by step, day by day, you can reclaim your life. You can find your voice. You can heal your heart. Choosing yourself is an act of courage. It is an act of self-love. And it is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Thank you for being here with me on this journey. Together, we are learning what it means to truly live. A new day feels like a fresh beginning. When I woke up this morning, I did not feel the weight of the past pressing down on me. Instead, I felt a quiet calm inside, a calm I had not known for a long time. The storm in my heart was fading. I was ready for something different. I was ready for a new day. The sunlight poured gently through the curtains, casting soft golden light across my room. It warmed my skin and filled me with hope. I took a deep breath and smiled, not because I had forgotten the pain, but because I had survived it. I had come through the darkest moments, and I was still here. This morning, I did not rush. I did not hurry to do 1,000 things. I sat quietly with my cup of tea, watching the steam rise in slow, delicate swirls. For the first time in many months, I allowed myself to feel grateful for the simple things. The warmth of the sun, the quiet of the house, the softness of my favorite chair. I thought about the journey I had been on. How many tears I had cried, how many nights I had felt alone, how many times I had doubted myself and wondered if I would ever feel whole again. But now, I saw those moments as part of my story, the chapters that made me stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. Today, I decided to step outside. The air was fresh and cool. The world seemed new, as if it too was waking up with me. I walked slowly down the street, noticing the small details I had missed before. The bright flowers in a neighbor's garden, the cheerful chatter of children playing, the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. As I walked, I felt a sense of peace that I had not felt in a long time. It was not loud or dramatic. It was quiet and steady, like a gentle heartbeat beneath my skin. This peace told me that I was ready to move forward, to open my heart again, to embrace the future with courage. I passed the small cafe where I used to meet my friend Linda. She had been a great support during my darkest days. I thought about calling her, but instead, I sent a simple message. Thank you for being there. I am ready for a new day. It felt good to reach out. It felt good to reconnect with the people who cared. I realized that healing was not about forgetting the past. It was about building new bridges, about choosing to surround myself with kindness and love. At home, I sat at my desk and opened my journal. Writing had become my daily ritual, a way to understand my thoughts and feelings. Today my words were filled with hope and promise. I am beginning again, I wrote. I am stepping into the light, even if it is only a small glow. I will be gentle with myself. I will celebrate the small victories. I will remember that every new day is a chance to grow. I thought about my family. The pain was still there, but it was no longer a chain that held me back. I chose to forgive, to let go of anger, and to protect my own heart. I knew that not everyone would understand my choices. Some might be angry or hurt. But I had learned that my peace was more important than anyone's approval. The new day also brought new dreams. I started to think about the things I wanted to do, the places I wanted to visit, the person I wanted to become. These dreams no longer felt out of reach. They felt possible. For years, I had put my own wishes aside. Now, I was ready to listen to them. I made a list of small goals, simple steps that would help me move forward. I wrote down things like take a painting class, visit the lake, learn to cook a new recipe. These were not grand plans, but they were mine, and they felt good. Later in the afternoon, the sky grew cloudy, and a gentle rain began to fall. I stood by the window, watching the drops race down the glass. The rain felt like a cleansing, washing away the last traces of doubt and fear. I smiled to myself and whispered, "This is my new day. I know that life will still bring challenges. There will be hard moments, and I will stumble sometimes. But now, I have the strength to stand up again. I have the courage to keep moving forward, step by step, day by day. I have learned that survival is not just about getting through the storm. It is about finding the light afterward. It is about choosing joy, hope, and love, even when it feels difficult." As the rain slowed and the clouds parted, a rainbow appeared in the sky. It was a quiet reminder that after every storm, there is beauty. After every night, there is dawn. This new day is mine. I will greet it with open arms and an open heart. I will cherish the gift of being alive and the chance to start again. To you who are listening now, I want to say this. No matter what you have been through, there is always a new day waiting for you. A day full of hope, full of promise, full of possibility. You are stronger than you know, and you deserve to live a life filled with peace and joy. Thank you for sharing this moment with me. Together, we are stepping into the light of a new day. Gratitude is a powerful feeling. Today, I want to share how saying thank you changed my life. It is not just about polite words or good manners. Saying thank you is about recognizing the kindness, support, and lessons we receive from others, and from ourselves. For many years, I did not feel thankful. I was angry, hurt, and confused. I blamed my family for the pain they caused. I blamed myself for trusting them too much. But as I began to heal, I realized that gratitude was a key step toward peace. I started small. I thanked the people who helped me, even in little ways. When my neighbor brought me soup after a hard day, I said thank you with a warm smile. When my friend Linda listened patiently while I cried, I told her thank you with all my heart. Saying thank you was not always easy. Sometimes I felt proud and stubborn. I thought that I did not need anyone's help or kindness. But I learned that gratitude does not make you weak. It makes you strong. It opens your heart and connects you to others. One morning, I wrote a list of everything I was thankful for. At first, it was hard to think of more than a few things. But as I wrote, the list grew longer. I thanked the sun for shining. I thanked the rain for washing the earth. I thanked my own heart for beating, even when it hurt. I also thanked myself for surviving, for being brave, for choosing to start again when the world seemed dark. I realized that I had been my own strongest supporter all along. Thanking myself felt strange at first. I was used to blaming and doubting. But now, I understood that self-gratitude is a form of self-love. It is important to honor your own efforts, even when others do not. One day, I called my daughter Sarah. We had been distant for many months. The silence between us was heavy and painful. I was nervous, unsure if she would answer. When she did, I did not rush into old arguments or accusations. Instead, I said something simple and true. Thank you for being my daughter. I love you. Her voice softened. We talked quietly, sharing memories and hopes. Saying thank you helped open a door that had been closed for too long. It was not a perfect fix, but it was a start. Gratitude taught me to look for the good, even in difficult situations. When I remembered the day my family left me at the bus stop in the storm, I still felt hurt. But I also felt thankful for the lessons that pain taught me. I learned to be strong, to trust my own instincts, to build a life that was mine. Thank you also means forgiveness. When you thank someone, you let go of anger and bitterness. You do not forget the hurt, but you choose peace instead. I practiced this slowly, forgiving my family for their mistakes. I did it for myself, not for them. In my quiet moments, I often said thank you to the universe. Thank you for the chances to learn and grow. Thank you for the people who stayed, and even those who left. Each experience was a thread in the fabric of my life. Saying thank you became a daily habit. I thanked the birds singing outside my window. I thanked the food on my table. I thanked the quiet evenings that allowed me to rest and dream. One evening, I wrote a letter to my past self. I thanked her for the courage to keep going, even when the path was unclear. I thanked her for the tears, the fears, and the hopes. I told her that she was not alone. Writing this letter was healing. It reminded me that every step I took was meaningful. Even the hardest days had purpose. I was grateful for the journey, with all its twists and turns. Gratitude also helped me appreciate my new life. I found joy in small moments. A warm cup of tea, a kind word from a stranger, the comfort of a soft blanket. These simple things became treasures. I know that not everyone understands the power of thankfulness. Sometimes people say it is naive or weak, but I believe the opposite. Gratitude is strength. It is the light that guides you through darkness. To you listening now, I want to encourage you to find things to be thankful for. Start small. Notice the little gifts around you. Say thank you aloud or in your heart. Let gratitude grow inside you like a seed. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for sharing this moment with me. Your presence means more than words can say. I will carry gratitude with me as I continue my journey. It is a compass that points me toward hope, kindness, and peace. And I hope it will be your compass too. Remember, no matter what you face, there is always something to be thankful for. Let that gratitude fill your heart and light your way. Thank you. Forgiving myself was one of the hardest things I ever had to do. For many years, I carried heavy feelings of guilt and regret. I blamed myself for things that happened in my family, for trusting people who hurt me, and for moments when I felt weak. But over time, I learned that forgiveness is not about forgetting or excusing mistakes. It is about freeing yourself from the pain that holds you back. I remember the nights when I could not sleep because my mind would replay every word, every action, every choice I made. I asked myself, why did I trust them? Why did I stay so long? Why did I not see the truth sooner? Those questions hurt deeply. I felt like I was carrying a heavy stone in my heart. One day, after a long walk in the park, I sat on a bench and looked at the trees. Their leaves were falling gently, and the air was cool and calm. In that quiet moment, I realized that the trees did not blame themselves when their leaves fell. They simply let go and prepared for new growth. I thought, maybe I could do the same. Forgiving myself meant I had to be kind to myself. I had to stop the harsh words in my mind and speak gently. I started by writing a letter to myself. I wrote about my fears, my pain, and my mistakes. Then, I wrote words of kindness and hope. I told myself that I did my best with what I knew at the time. I told myself that it was okay to be imperfect. This letter was a turning point. It was the first step toward healing. I read it many times, especially when I felt doubt creeping back. Slowly, the voice inside me became softer and more loving. Forgiveness is not a quick process. It takes time and patience. There were days when I would think I had forgiven myself, only to find old feelings returning. But each time, I reminded myself that it is normal. Healing is like the ocean tide. Sometimes it pulls back, and sometimes it comes in strong. I also learned to forgive my mistakes by learning from them. Instead of punishing myself, I asked, what can I do differently next time? How can I grow? From this changed my perspective. Mistakes became lessons, and lessons became strength. A big part of forgiving myself was accepting that I was human. I was not perfect, and I never would be. I had weaknesses, fears, and flaws, just like everyone else. Accepting this truth helped me feel less alone. I remember a moment when I looked in the mirror and said, I forgive you. It was simple, but powerful. It was like I was telling my reflection that it was okay to move forward. I smiled at myself, feeling a lightness I had not felt in years. Forgiving myself also meant letting go of blame. For a long time, I thought I was the only one responsible for the broken relationships and pain. But life is complicated. Many people make choices that affect others, sometimes without thinking about the consequences. I realized that blaming myself did not change the past. It only made the present heavier. I began to see my story with new eyes. I saw a woman who survived difficult times, a woman who showed courage by continuing to love, even when it was hard, a woman who deserved peace. Forgiveness opened the door to self-love. When I stopped punishing myself, I could finally care for myself. I started to eat better, rest more, and enjoy quiet moments. I gave myself permission to be happy. This journey of forgiveness also helped me in my relationships with others. When I forgave myself, I could forgive others more easily. I understood that everyone is doing their best in their own way. If you are struggling with guilt or regret, I want you to know that you are not alone. Forgiving yourself is not a sign of weakness. It is a brave and powerful choice. It means you are ready to heal. Try to be gentle with yourself. Speak kindly, like you would to a good friend. Remember that mistakes are part of being human. They do not define your worth. You might want to write a letter to yourself, just as I did. Write down your feelings, and then add words of kindness and hope. Read it whenever you feel heavy. Forgiveness does not erase your story. It honors it. It means you accept your past and choose to live fully in the present. It frees your heart to love again. Today, I forgive myself for all the times I felt lost, weak, or unworthy. I forgive myself for trusting when I should have been cautious. I forgive myself for holding on too long. And I forgive myself for being human. I am learning to love the woman I see in the mirror. She is strong, kind, and worthy of happiness. She is ready to live a new chapter with courage and grace. Forgiving myself is a gift I give to my heart. It is the beginning of freedom. Thank you for listening to my story. If you carry guilt or regret, I hope you find the courage to forgive yourself. You deserve peace. Remember, forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. Be patient, be kind, and take it one day at a time. Freedom is a feeling I never thought I would truly know again. For so long, I felt trapped by my past, by my family's actions, and by my own fears. But today, I can say that I am free. This freedom is not about leaving behind everything I have known. It is about finding peace within myself and choosing to live without the weight of old pain. I remember the first time I felt this freedom clearly. It was early in the morning, just as the sun began to rise. I stepped outside barefoot, feeling the cool grass under my feet. The air was fresh, and the sky was painted with soft colors. In that moment, I felt connected to the world in a way I had not for many years. Walking barefoot that morning was more than just feeling the earth. It was a symbol of letting go of everything that had held me down. I was no longer chained by resentment or fear. I was walking lightly, ready to embrace life with an open heart. Freedom also means choosing joy in simple things. I danced slowly in my living room, music playing softly. I did not care if anyone saw me or thought I looked silly. I was moving for myself, feeling alive and free. This small act was a victory over the darkness I had carried for too long. Being free means I am not afraid to be myself. I no longer hide my feelings or pretend to be someone I am not. I speak my truth calmly and clearly. I set boundaries with people who try to pull me back into old patterns. This courage took time to grow, but now it is strong. Freedom gave me the chance to explore new dreams. I began to try things I had never done before. I painted, wrote poetry, and even joined a small group of people who loved gardening. These new experiences opened my eyes to the beauty around me and the possibilities ahead. I want you to know that freedom is not about running away from problems. It is about facing them with strength and choosing not to let them control your life. I faced many hard truths about my family and myself, but I chose to heal rather than stay stuck. Sometimes freedom feels quiet and gentle, like the soft breeze on a warm day. Other times, it feels like a powerful storm, shaking everything inside you to make room for new growth. Both feelings are part of the journey. I also learned that freedom is connected to forgiveness. When I forgave myself and others, I opened the door to peace. Without forgiveness, anger and sadness build walls around the heart. With forgiveness, those walls come down, and love can flow again. Walking barefoot is my way to remember this freedom every day. It reminds me to stay grounded and true to myself. When I feel doubt, I touch the earth and breathe deeply. It is a simple practice, but it brings me back to the present moment and my own strength. Freedom means I can choose how to spend my time. I no longer feel guilty for taking care of myself. I read books, watch sunsets, and take long baths without shame. These small acts are powerful because they say, I matter. I want to encourage you, if you feel trapped by your past or by others, to take small steps toward freedom. Start by noticing what makes your heart feel heavy, and then imagine letting it go. You do not need to do it all at once. Freedom grows one small choice at a time. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone you trust or write down your feelings. You might want to try a new hobby or spend time in nature, feeling the earth beneath your feet. These moments connect you to life and remind you that you are not alone. Being free also means I am ready to love again, myself, life, and others. I am open to new relationships and experiences, but I choose them carefully. I know my worth and will not settle for less than I deserve. Freedom has changed how I see my story. I no longer see myself as a victim, but as a survivor and a fighter. Every struggle has made me stronger. Every tear has watered the seeds of my new life. I am free to create my own happiness without waiting for others to approve or understand. This freedom is a gift I give to myself every day. It is my choice, my power, and my peace. Thank you for walking this path with me. If you are searching for freedom, remember it is inside you already. It is waiting to be discovered, one gentle step at a time. Take a moment now, wherever you are, and imagine yourself walking barefoot on soft grass. Feel the earth supporting you. Breathe in freedom. Breathe out pain. You are free. For many years, I struggled to understand who I truly was. I let other people's opinions and actions shape my identity. I tried to be what they wanted me to be, a good mother, a loyal wife, a quiet woman who did not cause trouble. But deep inside, I felt lost. I felt like a shadow of myself. Now, after all the pain and healing, I can say with confidence, I know who I am. This knowledge did not come quickly. It came slowly, through reflection, mistakes, and hard choices. It came when I stopped trying to please others and started listening to my own heart. I am a woman who has faced betrayal, but did not give up. I am someone who was abandoned but learned to stand alone. I am not perfect. I have flaws and fears, but I am strong because I have faced my weaknesses and accepted them. Knowing who I am means I no longer hide behind masks. I do not pretend to be someone I am not to gain approval. I speak my truth clearly and calmly, even when it is difficult. I have learned that my voice matters. This new self-awareness has changed how I see my relationships. I no longer try to control or fix others. Instead, I focus on respecting myself and others. I understand that love is not about changing someone else, but about accepting them and being accepted. I also know that I deserve kindness, from myself and from others. For years, I was harsh to myself, blaming myself for things I could not control. Now, I practice self-compassion. I remind myself that making mistakes is part of being human. I give myself permission to grow and change. I see my story as a collection of moments that shaped me, not as a list of failures. Each experience taught me something important. Even the hardest times gave me lessons about patience, forgiveness, and courage. Knowing who I am means I can make choices that honor my values. I choose honesty over lies. I choose peace over conflict. I choose hope over despair. These choices guide me every day. I also see the importance of setting boundaries. For a long time, I allowed others to treat me poorly because I feared rejection. Now, I know that saying no is a way of saying yes to myself. Boundaries protect my peace and help me grow. This journey of self-discovery has not been easy. It required me to face uncomfortable truths and feel emotions I tried to avoid. There were moments when I wanted to give up and return to old habits, but I kept going because I knew something better was waiting. Knowing who I am gives me a sense of freedom. I no longer feel lost or confused about my place in the world. I am grounded in my identity, and that grounding gives me strength to face whatever comes next. I am also proud of the woman I have become. She is kind, patient, and brave. She is someone who loves deeply, but does not lose herself in others. She is a woman who has learned to trust herself. Sometimes I look in the mirror and smile. I see a face marked by life's challenges, but also by resilience. I see eyes that have cried, but also eyes that have laughed and dreamed. I see a woman who is whole. I want to share with you a simple exercise that helped me find myself. Take a quiet moment, close your eyes, and ask yourself, who am I? Do not rush to answer. Listen to your feelings and thoughts without judgment. Write down what comes to your mind. You may be surprised by what you discover. Then, ask yourself, what do I want for my life? This question helps to focus on your true desires, not what others expect. Write down your dreams, big or small. Keep this list somewhere safe and revisit it often. Knowing who I am also means I am ready to face the future with hope. I know that life will have challenges, but I have the strength and wisdom to handle them. I am not afraid to start new chapters. I want you to remember that your identity is not fixed. It can change and grow as you learn more about yourself. Do not be afraid to explore, to ask questions, and to make mistakes. Each step brings you closer to your true self. Thank you for listening to my story and allowing me to share this part of my journey. I hope it encourages you to look inside and find your own truth. Remember, you are more powerful than you think. Before we finish, take a deep breath and say to yourself, I know who I am. Feel the power in these words. Carry that strength with you every day. You are unique, you are valuable, and you are enough. As I come to the end of my story, I want to speak directly to you. This is not just my story anymore. It is our story. The story of anyone who has felt hurt, lost, or forgotten. It is the story of anyone who has found strength in unexpected places. Life can be very hard sometimes. People we love may let us down. We may feel alone, afraid, or powerless. I have been there. I have felt the sting of betrayal and the coldness of abandonment. But I learned that these moments do not define us. They are chapters in our journey, not the whole book. My message to you is simple but powerful. You are not alone, and you are stronger than you think. If you are listening to this story because you are struggling, please know that it is okay to feel pain. It is okay to cry, to feel angry, or confused. These feelings are part of being human. They are signs that you care deeply and that you want something better for yourself. But also know this: you have a power inside you that no one can take away. That power is your courage to keep going, your ability to love yourself even when others do not, and your hope for a brighter future. I want to encourage you to take small steps every day toward healing and growth. Healing is not a straight line. Sometimes, it feels like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. That is normal. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate small victories, like getting out of bed when it feels hard, or speaking your truth gently. One important thing I learned is the value of self-love. It is not selfish to care for yourself. It is necessary. When you love yourself, you build a foundation that supports you through difficult times. You learn to treat yourself with kindness and respect. Another lesson from my journey is the importance of forgiveness, not to excuse wrongs, but to free yourself from bitterness. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. It is a way to let go of the heavy weight of anger and pain. It does not mean forgetting or allowing harm to continue. It means choosing peace for your own heart. Please remember that your worth is not based on what others say or do. You are valuable just because you exist. No one can diminish your light unless you let them. If you have been hurt by family or friends, it is okay to set boundaries. Protect your heart. Say no when you need to. Surround yourself with people who respect and uplift you. True family can be found in unexpected places, in friends, in communities, or even in strangers who show kindness. I also want to remind you that it is never too late to start over. Life can surprise us with new beginnings at any age. You have the power to create a future that brings you joy, peace, and purpose. Your past does not have to limit your future. Please hold on to hope. Hope is a light in the darkest moments. It is what kept me going when I thought I could not go any further. It is what will carry you through too. If you ever feel lost, take a moment to breathe deeply. Close your eyes and remind yourself of your strengths. Think about moments when you overcame challenges, even small ones. You are stronger than your struggles. And do not be afraid to ask for help. Reach out to friends, family, or professionals when you need support. Asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to my story. Sharing my journey has been healing for me, and I hope it has touched you in some way. You have honored me with your time and attention. As you move forward, remember to be gentle with yourself. Life is a process of learning and growing. Embrace the journey with all its ups and downs. You have a beautiful story waiting to be written. You are the author of your life. Write it with courage, love, and truth. Before we say goodbye, I want to ask you to take one small step today for your own well-being. It might be a kind word to yourself, a walk outside, or a moment of quiet reflection. Whatever it is, let it be a reminder that you matter. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in yourself. And thank you for letting me share my story with you. Remember, you are not alone. You are strong. You are enough.